What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Spring's getting close to the finish line here. Got one more week, big scrimmage tomorrow. We will make sure you are up to date on what's happening then. But first, wanted to kind of recap here just some things that we're seeing in spring that are surprises, right? So spring is interesting time because you get to see established players and kind of how they're doing, where they're at, new schemes in this case, new defensive coordinator. You also have a lot of freshmen coming in. You want to get first eyes on those guys, the portal guys. But I want to highlight really just things that maybe we didn't expect going into spring that were pleasant surprises. Last year, I would say OJ Frederick was a surprise. Not in spring because he got here in summer, but when he went through his practices in August, that was a major surprise that he was so ready to play and start. Isaiah Horton, that was a spring surprise. The weight that he put on, his ability to make himself into an impact player, I thought that was a surprise last year. Markell Bell's readiness to play right away, ended up starting half the season, playing basically starter snaps. That was a surprise that we started talking about back in spring because we said, hey, this guy's playing a lot. Pete, who we're about to hop in a second, was the one saying, the Markell Bell would start. So these are things that we had seen in spring or in camp that we didn't expect, but ended up playing out during the season, and we just wanted to give it to you as we saw it. So first, I want to talk about some folks who are always going to tell you how they see it. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-33. Sorry, I was 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
Good morning, D.
I was trying to pull up comments while I'm doing my ad read. It's not as easy as it looks. That's why I need Pete out here.
What's going on?
I know you're on the injured list. You got a tracheal bruise there. So
yeah, some call it soccer, others call it foreplay. I call it war. It was really just a boot from our good friend Chase Romero. To the Adam's apple. But we'll be all right. I did the show yesterday with it. I didn't get any comments about it, but I think you can see it. You can see it a little bit more there. So
they call it foreplay?
Well, that's what some would call it, but
what does that even mean?
Well, it looks like something else. It doesn't look like a bruise.
Oh, like a hickey. You get hickeys on the center of your neck.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily say I would, but I've had a couple people accuse me of that in public the last day. So
okay, well,
just getting it out there, getting out in front of it.
You sound good. You sound ready to rock and roll. Got a lot of people here enjoying their Friday mornings. Always a good time to talk Canes football. So let's go right into it, and we'll talk JJ Sparks too a little bit there at the end because we haven't talked about him, and also Trey Donaldson, right? We haven't talked about him. So PQ those up to talk about here at the end. But I want to start by focusing on some spring surprises. This is something that, look, people say, oh, it's just spring football. It's just, August camp, these practices before the season. But 90% of the time, things that you see consistently, meaning on a day in, day out basis, practice in, practice out basis, usually find their way onto the field, even if it's just guys that get more playing time. It usually translates. So not all these things are going to be reflected on the field this year, but I'd say pretty much most of them will, based on prior experience, what we saw last year. Again, you can go back to our spring reports last year or our August camp reports, and the things that were consistently showing up found their way onto the field. So, a lot to talk about here. Pete, I'll let you kind of get us started here with the first surprise of camp.
Yeah, Markeith Williams, talked about him a couple days ago on, I think maybe on the Tuesday show. It wasn't yesterday, but this is a guy that I spoke about last year when I was doing my car reports as someone who always looked fluid going through these individual drills. And I think in coverage could provide a lot, but I think the physicality, everyone always says with him needed to add weight. And the physicality that has been kind of the thing that was lacking. But I said it the other day, I think for whatever reason, I think the new coaching staff was a breath of fresh air for him. And I don't want to classify it as like he was in the doghouse, because I don't think that was the case last year. But I think there was a lack of trust for whatever reason from the previous coaches at that spot. I think some of it probably stemming from what we just talked about now. But there has to be an understanding that this isn't a guy that you can ever expect to be delivering big blows consistently, right? You just want him to be willing to tackle if needed, but what he can bring on the back end in terms of covering a lot of ground and really being someone in coverage that you haven't had there consistently in a few years.
Yeah, he was
Cam Kitchens, the couple years ago, obviously has his All-American year, but that's what you're looking for out of him. He can cover a lot of ground, man. He's long, 6'1", 6'2", and again, fluid hips.
Yeah, Cam is somebody who has always talked up Markeith Williams and liked his game. That's something I've heard from people around Cam for years since Markeith got here. He was somebody who was a ball hawk in high school. His coverage skills are so good that if you looked at the bowl game against Iowa State when we were really down on corners due to injury, he was playing a ton of corner in that game, and he has that ability, not ideally, but he just to show you relative to the rest of the safety room, his coverage skills are on the higher end. Also, like we said, a very good ball hawk. The weakness is the physicality, just never put on a lot of weight. I don't know if it's a willingness issue as much as it is just that he's just skinny, And then you look at some of the plays, the Louisville game, when they returned the kick for a touchdown, he had a clear shot on the returner and wasn't able to get that done. So those were some of the things I think that held him back. But now you see him in spring, and even though it's a new system, new coaches, everything else, you could tell the game has slowed down for him. He's being much more aggressive as far as trusting his instincts, particularly in the passing game, getting a ton of interceptions, breaking on the ball, just playing with a lot of confidence. And I salute him. I got to be honest, I didn't think he was going to last after his freshman year. I thought he'd be one of those guys like a Chris Graves, who himself's a pretty talented player, but I thought he'd be like that and he just kind of fade away. And that didn't happen. He stayed with it. He kept growing, maybe not physically, but certainly mentally. And I think he's in a position right now where if you need a cover safety who can really help you in the passing game and hopefully be competent in the running game, he's going to give you some of that. We don't know as much about the tackling yet because it's spring practice. You're not taking guys to the ground consistently. We will get a little bit of that, though, tomorrow in that full contact scrimmage. I hope he's out there hidden.
So the next guy we're going to talk about, there's actually a question about him here asking, how does Hellcat look? Do you think he contributes at all this year? And that's the next player we're going to be talking about, Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, running back, redshirted last year, and someone who looking for a third guy to really step up in that running back room. Obviously, we understand Elijah Lofton could get carries there as well, but you have Lyle, you have Fletcher, consistently need a number 3, understanding that that position does have injuries, right? And could Chris Wheatley-Humphrey be that guy?
Yeah, I think the thing with him that surprised me, I knew he could run. It was really the size, right? So this guy, they're saying he's 200 pounds. I saw him up close. He, to me, I made a point yesterday during practice to really just kind of, size him up and see just how he compares to other backs we've had. And I would say he is probably north of Henry Parrish right now, right? So Henry Parrish was a rotational back, an inside runner, had no problem with that. Over a course of a season, I think he wore down when you relied on him. You saw that with Mississippi this year, Ole Miss. He wasn't able to just withstand the whole SEC schedule with a high workload, but in a rotation, he's great, and he gives you insurance. He would have been a guy, to help. Certainly, we could have used a Henry Parrish this year for depth behind Lyle and Fletcher. So that would be my comp based on just size. I think he's a little bigger maybe than Parrish. He has the same kind of slippery, natural running ability. So if he can be like a Henry Parrish for us, which I'm not saying he will be. Again, a scrimmage is big for him tomorrow. How's he going to handle that weight? How's he going to be able to deal with full contact tackling, taken down to the ground? We'll find out. But I think the size, just seeing him up close after this weight gain, I would say compares favorably to Henry Parrish. And he's not 200, maybe he's 195, 196, but he's enough that I think you can count on him to be depth and not just like a gadget guy.
Yeah, without a doubt. And look, there's a question here about Gerard Pringle, who we've spoken about as well. And look, he's without a doubt in the mix, but you would love to see someone like Wheatley-Humphrey, who I don't want to say people have counted him out, but I don't think there's been that much talk about him, because when a guy doesn't play freshman year, you're kind of like, well, he must not be that guy. But some players, even though it's an old school approach, just they really need that redshirt year. And I give him credit from everything that I've heard. Really, he accepted that, has worked as the proof is shown now, just what his body looks like, right? And I think you have to commend a guy for putting his head down and working like that, and not just taking the easy way. I don't know what's going to happen now. Any of these guys can transfer, right? I'm not in a couple of weeks we could be getting things that certain guys that we're talking about now are hitting the portal. But he didn't just leave after 1 year, right? He's seeing the spring out, and it looks like he's put himself in a solid position here. Yeah,
I always liked his actual running. I thought he was a good runner. He's slippery. He's not just like, he's not afraid to run between the tackles. He was very, very productive in high school, extremely productive for a North Broward program that was not that good. What was the name of his program? I never even heard of the program before. Let me just check it out here, because he had chances to go to schools like Dillard, or even like one of these big private schools, which would have been South Broward. Sorry, I knew it was one of those. South Broward. So he was at South Broward, ran like crazy, 16 yards a carry, had chances to go to private schools or bigger public schools and make his name maybe a little bigger with the Stars, but he ended up just staying there, dominating inside the tackles, big plays, etc. Just really laterally quick and fluid. So the question with him was always extra weight. He ran well last year in camp, but got nicked up. Again, the weight's a factor, also a factor in pass protection. So just happy to see him doing what he needs to do. Got a comment here from John at Holistic Shield. Appreciate you. He says, I love the content and show. D, I was in Milwaukee yesterday having dinner. I remember you saying it's where your family moved from Cuba, if I remember correctly. It's interesting. It's actually 2 Milwaukees. We had some family in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And then most of my family, my dad and everybody else, was in Milwaukee, Oregon, which is a suburb of Portland. So they sent us all over the place.
Shout out to Ethiokane, man. Congratulating the Toon Army, us Newcastle fans, us Geordies, Carabao Cup winners. It's nice to see a classy Arsenal fan for once. But my good friend Master Tesfazion is very, very threatened by our place in the top 4 or 5. I don't know why he's so threatened by it. But
what's the Toon Army?
That's one of the nicknames for the Newcastle fans. So
what's it mean? I know you're a long time Newcastle fan. So that's
that's the Toon Army, man. And you got to understand that it's a long suffering fan base. First title in 70 years almost. So the scenes are great. A lot of people are calling it a Mickey Mouse title, but that's just by other clubs that are threatened by our presence. I'm gonna go see my Saudi brothers this afternoon in Doral for Live Miami. So it's great times, man.
Yeah, man. It's Friday, baby. We got scrimmage tomorrow. Life is good. So far, everybody pretty much healthy. Knock on wood. Hope it stays that way. So, Pete, what we got next year on the surprise list?
I think this could probably classify as the biggest surprise of all of them. Your boy Owen Ruskovich at tight end.
And you saw him, right? Because you saw him in the open period.
Really, like the first couple of practices, I thought it was. I didn't know who it was at first. I thought I had actually asked right away. I had asked Cam Gorby at practice, like the first or second practice, like, is that Luke Nichols' brother? At first, I thought it was Luca Gilbert, because when you walk into the first practice, you don't know. You have the roster, but like, you're just there like talking to people and say, who is that? And it was big Owen Ruskovich.
Big Owen Russ. Oh, by the way, appreciate you, Ethiokane. Good morning. First,
are you overseas, Ethiokane? Are you across the pond? Let us know, man. We like to hear where everyone's watching from.
Yeah, man. So Arsenal fan there for you, Pete. So yeah, with Ruskovich, he's a walk-on. He's from a big program in DC. I had not really paid him much attention. We had so many tight ends last year. We had Riley Williams. You had obviously McCormick, and then of course Arroyo, the best tight end to me in the country. I know people always say I'm a homer because I'm not talking about Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland. Arroyo's the best. He's the fastest. He's the best combination of size, speed, physicality, production, fluidity, hands, character, period. He'll be the best tight end. You put my name on that one. But anyways, so you kind of got lost in the shuffle there with Ruskovich as a walk-on, even though he came from a good program and he was like 6'5", 6'6", so he had size and he was pretty thick. He wasn't a light guy. This year, obviously, the depth's a lot lower, but you do have a Jake Nickel who you brought in, who was a scholarship player for UAB. Luke Nickel's brother, you kind of expect him to be a blocker there. You have the freshman tight ends. Alex Bauman getting in there in the mix, the Tulane transfer. So there's guys there, but he has consistently stood out both because of his size. He can block. He's going to potentially be that Cam McCormick for you as a blocker, but he's also made some nice catches, man. He's a coordinated guy. He actually has beaten scholarship guys at red zone drills, just one-on-ones, and looked good. He's not like, I understand the skepticism with a walk-on, but there's walk-ons that play. And this guy's movements, his size, his pedigree from being from a big school, and just his development is his third year now. He's been in the weight room working. I think he is going to be able to play and help us in a role. He's not going to be Elijah Arroyo. That's not going to happen. But if you're talking about just helping us and be in a role, I think that he could get it done. So, look at it. You got John at Holistic Shield. I'm in Oregon. You should consider vacationing in Dundee, Oregon. It's wine country of Oregon. I love it. I got a shirt from the Willamette Valley Winery. It says it's Willamette, damn it, because a lot of people say like Willamette, or they pronounce it wrong, but it's Willamette. If you ever talk to Oregon folks about the valley out there. Anyway,
have you confirmed that it's pronounced Alex Bauman? You were saying Bowman the other day, and
yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if you heard. I called you out. I was doing the instant reaction of practice, and I said Bauman. I said, you know what? D-Money says it Bowman, but I'm going with my pronunciation based on his track record of name pronunciation. So I think it's Bauman. We got to find that out before we continue to butcher it one way or the other.
Yeah, shout out to my mother, La Lazara. Just jumped in the frame there. I think she made her podcast debut. So shout out to Laz. So who we got next? So anyways,
another guy. Yeah. So the next guy that we have here, who is someone who over the years we've hyped him up a good amount at different points of his career. And I think similarly to some of the comments we made, I would say even more to a higher degree about Hellcat earlier, someone who has stuck it out really, and that's Chase Smith, who provides unique size and speed. Really, I think that he's regained now after a lot of these injuries that he's had. Someone who loves the program, and I think in this defense has a better role for his skill set. D.
Yeah, I could tell you that with Heatherman, he wants long, athletic, NFL-type linebackers, the guys that look the part, right? Everybody does, of course. But I think he's going to be more focused on that than others and just saying, listen, we want guys that have the NFL traits. We're going to coach them up. We're going to teach them the fundamentals. We're going to make them work in our system. Mike, Will, doesn't really matter. We want guys that look like NFL players. I think that is very much what you're going to see from Heatherman. Chase, even though he was recruited, he wasn't even recruited by Mario. He was recruited by Manny Diaz. He fits that bill. He's a mature guy. He's a class of 21 guy, so he's older. He's been around. He always had great speed and athleticism. He was a receiver and safety in high school. Had that really bad knee injury. He was kicking butt on special teams. Was our best special teams player. Hurt his knee. Really set
then had a shoulder injury too.
Yeah, he's been beat up. But now you see him. No knee brace. He's out there running. He's getting a lot of reps with the ones. He's not the only one. It's not like it's just he's planted there with the ones, but he's getting a lot of reps with the ones. He's having opportunities to play for a defensive coordinator who doesn't know any of this. He doesn't know about that. I'm sure he knows now about the knee injury and all this other stuff, but he's seeing all this kind of clean. So big opportunity for Chase Smith. The scrimmage on Saturday, for those who don't understand, who don't get out there, when we talk about team drills and practices, most of it is thud, meaning they're not tackling these guys to the ground every single play. In fact, they're very rarely tackling to the ground. Just doesn't happen for injury reasons, rules, everything else. So when you have these live scrimmages, which tomorrow is going to be the first one, you see players get tackled to the ground. And to me, running backs, right, linebackers, maybe some of the safeties where you want to see their physicality, that is where you get the real evaluation when you can take him to the ground. Martin Dubé pointing out Chase Smith blocking that pass in the Florida game. Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't play more after that. I thought he was going to have a bigger role. Obviously, the defense, they were just kind of trying to see what worked there. It was a tough year for a million reasons. So never got the Chase Smith breakout open. Maybe this year is the one. But I do think tomorrow's scrimmage, some of the names we've listed, right? If there's a full contact scrimmage, when you talk about Markeith Williams, is going to tackle guys to the ground if they get to him in space. Is a Chase Smith going to be able to thrive in that full contact environment? Is a Ruskovich going to be able to catch the ball, deal with getting tackled to the ground and hold on to it, right? That's not happened for him in a while. So there's a lot of things, Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, probably more than anybody. How is he going to be able to deal with live tackling? Is he going to be stronger, more durable, able to get that extra yard? These are all things we're going to find out tomorrow at that scrimmage Saturday morning. And look, if you guys wake up Saturday morning hungry, you want a nice breakfast, a hearty breakfast is going to fill you up for the whole day, or you're getting out for lunch and you want to really pig out and have some of the best Cuban food in the world. Islas Canarias Express right there in Dadeland in the dining pavilion. This is a 40-plus year Miami staple. Again, Anthony Bourdain, the famous chef who goes to different cities and goes to their best restaurants. He drove all the way to Westchester, to Sweetwater area, to go to Islas Canarias and have some Cuban food. That's to tell you what you need to know. I don't know what does. This is the best in the world. 7 different types of croquetas. You got the sandwiches. Then you got different kind of Americanized items if you want to try something that's more of a fusion. Of course, they have all the traditional stuff that your grandmother would make, but they got some fusion. They got tequeños, which is actually Venezuelan, but you want to grab it on the go, they can get it there. Soups, classic crema de malanga renu on the menu, but an old classic. Kids stuff, anything you want, you can get at Islas Canarias Express, along with the coffee that you hear Mario always talking about. And then you get the T-shirt too at the Croqueta County shop. I'm not wearing it today, but I'll probably maybe I'll wear it tomorrow to the scrimmage. Show off some of the best gear in Miami with Islas Canarias. There it is, Blue, my boy. I'm gonna hit it up before the spring game next Saturday. You're gonna be feeling like $1 million. What a Saturday! Islas plus a spring game. Doesn't get any better.
Kyle asking if Chase Smith's like 6'3", 6'4", 240. Yeah, I would say a legit 6'3". 235, 240. I mean, probably on the heavier side.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think he's a guy that it's really going to be a downhill as a blitzer with him. I would say D off the edge. It's not that he can't change direction. I just think at this point you're going to see, you're going to get the best out of him by using him as a pass rusher essentially.
Rob says, "Don't you ever put Westchester and Sweetwater in the same?"
Yeah, I was gonna say, D.
I know.
As someone,
I don't know. It's kind of.
It's not.
Where would you say it is? Tamiami? I mean, where would you say it is?
I mean, I guess it's. I would say more.
Not the dining
Sweetwater. It's not West.
One.
Oh no, the original. I would say more Sweetwater. That's not.
Yeah, I passed through Westchester to get there.
Yeah, but you pass through a lot of places to get to other places. It's not. It's not the same.
I know you're West. I mean, Glenmore Heights. You're officially
I'm
right?
Yeah, right I'm on the border. Glenvar and Westchester don't have great relations at the moment, so I don't really want to speak on it publicly. But it is what it is.
All right, so yeah, apologies, Rob. So getting to our last guy here, and look, we cheated a little bit, but I think this is worth talking about because this is one of the stories to me of the spring. So my last surprise is the entire 2025 defensive class of the 225 recruiting class. Reason I say that is because Miami had a bad season on defense. I think that helped contribute to a disappointing finish in the recruiting class, particularly on the defensive end. The offensive class, I think they missed some guys, but they got a lot of guys they wanted. The defensive class, there were misses, there were decommits. It just wasn't a good feeling going into the finish there with the defensive class. But then you get these guys on campus and you look at them, and some guys that maybe you weren't counting on as much are looking really, really good. So, of course, the Hayden Lowe is a 5-star. He looks like a 5-star. He looks absolutely elite to me. But a guy like Adante Simpson, who we've talked about a ton on this show, I did not expect him to look the way he does. If he came in and you said this is a 4-star, 5-star player, you wouldn't be feeling bad about it, right? You'd be like, all right, that looks good. He's got the size. He moves around. He's productive. He's getting more and more reps with the second and first team. Ideally, you don't want him out there as a true freshman, but just the fact that he's pushing in the spring setting is a good sign for his development. He's young for his grade. I think he might even be still 17, or if he's 18, he's a young 18. So he's somebody who's going to be continuing to get bigger and stronger. But right now, just looking at him move, he looks really, really, really good. Some other guys on defense that are impressing me. I'd say Chris Ewald, nickel corner, also can play outside from Chaminade. 4-star player. We beat Georgia to get him, so you knew he was a good player. But I think his readiness to play right away is a little bit of a surprise, at least to me. He's ready to rock and roll. He's out there making plays and getting time. Amari Wallace is healthy, which you didn't know Amari Wallace would be healthy. That's a nice little surprise. So I think just in general, I'm skipping over some guys, but I think just in general, this 2025 defensive class might be a little better and more ready to help us than we would have thought.
Yeah, I have a picture here of Dante Simpson and like standing next to Justin Scott in practice yesterday. You got a couple more of those body types, and I feel I'm not saying for this next season necessarily, but just in general roster building, like that's what it needs to look like in the interior.
100%. And
you can have these guys who can move on the inside on pass rushing situations, but you don't want to rely on that being your down to down sort of thing. And by the way, Blay has great size to him also, but I'm just looking towards the future, right, and trying to. Because the defensive lines, you got to have that legitimate depth, right? And I think they're working towards it. Ahmad Moten, another guy with that sort of size as well, that has shown flashes, but consistently, I think, can really take a big leap this year. So just seeing those guys next to each other in practice yesterday was impressive.
Yeah, so that to me. I mean, I know you're watching the media session, but you still get to see some work. And, you are somebody who's been around the block. So the body types, which you're talking about, it doesn't take a lot to see, hey, man, we're a little light this year, or wow, this guy's a little bigger than I thought, right? I mean, I've heard, we saw at practice, there was a picture posted on Twitter, John Ford, John Garvin, Rousseau. There were a lot of comparisons between Dante Simpson and Ford. Ford probably a little bigger. Ford looked huge when he was at practice. Just him being in the NFL for a while and being a naturally big dude. I know you had experience with him. You were probably the first person to call him getting drafted back in the day, and of course he did to the Packers. But seeing him, he's huge. I don't think Simpson's that big. But probably a little twitchier, and it's similar.
I think he's
kind of
more rocked up. I think he's a little bit more rocked up, maybe at this. But like when I say rocked up, like leaned out, where you can see that. Like I think at the same stage, Ford had a little bit more baby fat on him, sort of, and I think that's why he does look twitchier, or that's why he does seem twitchier at this stage. And I think with him, it's going to be finishing plays, because you see a lot of times the pop in his hands, you see the quickness in his feet. At least in high school, you did, but it's about finishing those plays. You can get there, but you gotta make the play.
Yeah. So New King God saying we need to take more chances with 3-stars with those larger body types for the D line and coach them up and see how it works out. So it's an interesting point you make. So broader discussion, and I won't get too far in the weeds here, but I've been thinking about this a lot. With defensive line, you got to get 5 stars, right? Everybody wants it. It's not secret. I don't think anybody really disagrees. You got to get 5 stars on the defensive line. Those are the guys that go to the NFL and ball. That's your Jeffrey Simmons, your Chris Jones, your top. Look at the NFL draft this year. All the guys, the D linemen, they're going in the first round.
Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, they're all 4-star, 5-star players. Those guys are pretty easy to scout. Now, you do sometimes get a guy like a Simpson who's a 3-star that you get by and you say, wow, this guy's traits are good. And those guys get drafted every year too. There's always 1 or 2 of those guys. I think Kenneth Grant was actually a high 3-star, low 4-star. But to me, when you're getting a defensive tackle that's not a 5-star, 4-star, I agree with New King God. Get a guy with superhuman traits that maybe just is lazy and raw. I don't usually say that about other positions. I think actually probably the opposite with a lot of other positions. But I think with D-line, I'm only concerned with traits, right? Traits to me on D-line is everything, the size, the athleticism, hopefully a little bit of anger and meanness. You don't want someone who's just soft. But, there are a lot of lazy guys that play this position. It's just the reality, Pete. You recruited it. You know what I'm saying is true. There's just some guys in this position that are lazy in high school. Maybe they're not what you want always at all times. But there's only so many of them. And they have certain body types and traits that you need. And sometimes those guys that are lazy in high school, they wake up. So to me, I think when you're getting, John Ford, I don't know if he was lazy in high school, but he wasn't dominant, for whatever reason. You get him, he ends up being a good contributor for you, and he's in the NFL. So I think you get guys. Rousseau definitely was not lazy, but he had issues that he was not a 4-star, 5-star player. He was a receiver. He was skinny at the time. But Miami took a bet on the traits, and the guy ends up being one of the highest paid defensive ends in the NFL. So I think when you are looking at the defensive end position in high school and you're not getting the 5-star, 4-star, maybe you're trying to save some money on a player to fill up the class. To me, I bet big on traits, and it doesn't work out. See you later. We'll get another one next year. But if it does work out, you have a huge hit. So I think that's more. Big swings on defensive line, and then also at quarterback. I think you need to take big swings on traits. This is my opinion. So quarterback, I would get guys that maybe they're multi-sport guys, maybe they're raw, maybe they played at a small school, or small area, and there's questions. Maybe they're not as accurate right now as they potentially could be down the road. But I would bet on guys with supreme talent. And then at quarterback, unlike defensive tackle, obviously you have to have super good intangibles as well. You got to be competitive, poised, a winner, hard worker, all that stuff. There's less characters. You can't take characters at quarterback like you can at D-tackle. But if the character is good and the traits are good, to me, that's who you want to target at quarterback. Don't worry about chasing these 5-star guys where you're spending millions of dollars. To me, I would get guys with traits, and then in the portal, you're getting your Cam Wards, your Carson Becks, getting, portal dominating the draft this year. Pretty much everybody's going to get drafted at quarterback this year from the portal. The championship game was 2 portal guys. We had the best quarterback we've had in my lifetime. He was a portal guy. So I'm a believer for quarterback, portal, and then from high school at quarterback, get cheaper guys with the chance to hit huge. And defensive tackle, just when you're getting those 3-star guys, you want to get the 5-star guys, 4-star guys. I'd rather spend money on a 5-star defensive tackle in high school than a 5-star quarterback in high school. That's harder to get in the portal. But if you are taking 3 stars at D-line, get traits just like a quarterback. And if it hits big, you've won the lottery. If it doesn't hit big, you move on to the next one. That's kind of my philosophy on that one.
The tough thing is even the 3 stars with traits are wanted. So you still have a battle for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Davis was a 3-star. He went to Georgia. Remember that big dude that got drafted first round now with the Eagles?
Jordan Davis, yeah.
You said, watch Simpson playing ESPN. Felt he was chilling a bit during the game. I think he's a perfect example of what D-Money is saying. Yeah, there's guys like that, man, and he's young too. So at that position, you see it a lot
of times. It's just like, also you're that much bigger and athletic than everyone you're playing against, and you feel like you can get by with doing the minimum. And again, I'm not saying it's exactly the case with him. I don't want to. I don't want him. He's still got a lot of time left, but the early signs are very, very good there. Yeah,
exactly. I'm not saying. I mean, look, I'll tell you this. I seen him on Green Street. He don't look lazy to me. He's out there competing his butt off, and he's in good shape too. Kevin Dennis saying RJ McIntosh, an example, the basketball guy, with traits. Brendan Dorless from Deerfield Beach, who's someone I thought Miami should have recruited out of high school. We didn't. He ended up going to Oregon, becoming an NFL player for Mario Cristobal. So, guys like that, basketball players, I think you got to bet traits. And I'm the biggest character guy in the world. I think just being loving football and being a high motor guy and working hard, being smart more than anything is premium. The more I've been around these and seen guys succeed and fail. D-line's the one position, particularly defensive tackle, where just get traits, figure out the rest. Butch Davis is like that too.
So do we want to get into some basketball stuff, D?
Let's talk about we had a commit that we weren't able to talk about.
Oh, yes, that's
recorded,
right.
And your spring practice breakdown. But I want to talk about J.J. Sparks from Jacksonville Bulls. Jacksonville Bulls, for those who don't know, is a powerhouse up there in North Florida, historically a strong school. Chipper Jones went there from the Atlanta Braves, actually a Miami Hurricanes baseball signee, for those who don't remember. Mac Jones, Alabama quarterback. There's been a bunch of guys from Jacksonville Bulls that have made it in professional sports and the heights of college sports. Miami's never done well there. This is Jacksonville. This is North Florida. Those who are not from Florida, it's very, very far. It's really closer, probably culturally and just location-wise to Georgia than it is to South Florida. But Miami's able to go in there and get a nasty center prospect in J.J. Sparks. Florida State was in on this one heavy. They had him on campus. He ultimately comes down last week to Miami and commits. Love the development. He wanted to be part of what Miami's doing on the offensive line. People ask, is this like just about the take in general? This is what Miami wants at center. They were around him. They saw him and they visited him in January, liked what they saw. The more Miami's been around this guy, the more they like him. And then you watch the film. He's playing guard. He'll be a center here. You just see the nastiness. One thing that jumps out, this guy started very, very early at Jacksonville Bulls, which, again, is a big-time program. So the fact that he's out there early, making plays and just knocking people, throwing people out the club, I think that is telling, both from his IQ, his tenacity, and his talent, because it's not a program where a lot of people do play early. But you see him here. He's a brawler. He likes to finish. He's got good size for a center. The guard maybe a little undersized, but at center he's going to be probably oversized, 6'4", 6'3.5", over 300 pounds in high school. So a bigger center prospect, nastier center prospect, but someone that they think he can block in space, as you see him right there. They think he can move laterally, he can mirror guys, and they just love his IQ and his tenacity. This mirror ball system for centers is extremely demanding mentally. The center has a lot of freedom to kind of make calls and see things more so than other programs. I talked to James Brockermeyer about it on Storm Sessions, the show I do for the University of Miami, and he was very clear that one of the reasons he wanted to come to Miami is because the Miami center does more than other centers at other big-time schools. So that's something Mirabal values, is IQ. This guy's got that, but he also has just a really, really nasty streak, some good size, and some good power as well.
Matthew Catalina, who I've seen him comment like a couple times about this, he said we're taking like 12 linemen this cycle. You need it. You need it. You're losing, and we've said this a few times now over the last month or so, D, as more O-line targets pop up. You're losing 4 starters in all likelihood. You're just the nature of how it is. You're probably going to have 2 guys enter the portal, right? So that'll be, between now and whether it's this cycle or a year, at the end of the season, that'll be 6, 7 guys potentially that you need to replace on the offensive line. So yeah, you need to take a lot of guys in the class. It's pretty simple to me.
Yeah, and look, I don't think this is a 105 take, meaning like I think this is a guy they would have taken even if they didn't have the enhanced scholarships. So don't misconstrue that. I think this is the guy they like at center. But in terms of offensive line, that's a position I think you might see oversigned in the future, just because Mirabal's such a good developer. He can do so much with these guys. And then also, you have 15. If you run 3 legitimate lines, that's 15 players, right, in practice. So you need it's hard to oversign offensive linemen. The other part here this year is this is a loaded year in Florida. They think this is the best year they've ever had in Florida for offensive line, based on what Mirabal's seen, what Cristobal's seen, what others have seen. So they want to get as many as possible. You already got some good linemen in the boat. Ben Cogden from out of state, who's a really, really intriguing tackle prospect, 6'7" wrestler, super athletic, flexible. Love him. Also a nasty finisher. Joel Irvin, we talked about him a ton. I think he's like a 5-star type guy in the building. When you talk about his size, which is, I've seen him in person. I mean, NFL elite dimensions, not college elite, NFL elite dimensions, 6'7", 330 plus, lean, 88-inch wing, 11.5-inch hands, looks good, looks young. I think the guy's unreal, and he has good film as well. And then you add Sparks in the mix. Still after Jackson Canwell, still after Kenyi Pepe, still after Brett Colajay, still after a ton of guys. I'm Cannon Pickett. I'm leaving a bunch out, but this is a loaded year at offensive line. Miami's going to sign as many as they can. There's a line of what it takes to play at Miami, and if you're over that line, they're bringing you in. And there's a lot of guys. It's a high line. I mean, this is expected to be a top 5 offensive line in the country every single season. So it's a high bar, but there's a lot of guys in Florida this particular year that are over the bar. So anyone that's over the bar, they're gonna take them.
Anthony Manzano says, Pete, I thought we have 3 more years of eligibility left with Markel Bell. I think technically with the ruling they made last year on the JUCO guys, he would have this year and another year, but this is going to be his 5th year in college. The way things are trending for him, I would probably say that he's gone after this year. Not saying he's like a guaranteed first round pick, but if he's a projected top 3 round pick, I would say he's probably gonna be headed to the next level, and I think it's trending that way.
Yeah, Mario said in his presser, I mean, Mario talked about it. I posted the interview on CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting. Go sign up for free. Mario talked about the fact that they're going to lose a lot, so they need to sign a lot. He said we might have 4 to 5 guys drafted in the NFL draft this year. I don't think that's the case. I hope that's not the case. That means everybody left. But I think definitely you're looking at Mauanoa as a first-round pick, Markel Bell potentially day 2, day 1 pick if he keeps his current trajectory. I think he'll at least I'm confident he'll get drafted somewhere on his current trajectory. Ines Cooper, certainly somebody who you could see drafted. And then you get to Brockermeyer. We'll see how he develops. I like what from a Canes standpoint, I really like what I see with him. And then Matt McCoy, I think someone who people on the board don't value the way that is valued, or people on the just in the Canes community in general, they don't maybe value him the same way the staff values him. He's like a big dude. He's as big as any of these guys. He's a former tight end. He's super athletic. He's playing guard, but he can play tackle. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Yeah.
As D Huck was saying about how there's going to be a lot more spots available now too. So.
Yep, we got stacked talent, particularly at that position. The expectations, top 5 offensive line every year. So we got to get those guys.
Yeah, and D, this is kind of off topic, but now that we're talking about O-line, I talked about him yesterday on the show, on my instant reaction pod. Juan Minaya, man. We talked about him a few weeks back as someone who's made progress, but man, he had some good reps yesterday.
Yeah.
Mario was pumped up. Mario was absolutely pumped up with him. I mean, I think he's earning himself a look to be someone who gets rotational snaps, as crazy as it may sound right now. I mean, I just seeing the reaction and hearing certain things, like I think they're going to try to work him in the mix one way or another, man. I really do.
Yeah, he was right the first cut on the surprise list. He might deserve to be there. And I'm glad you brought him up. Question from Bagging Up here. Will we have more inside zone or duo? We're going to be a duo-heavy team. That's going to be our identity. Miami really didn't run a lot of plays last year running-wise. It's funny, and I'm not saying this about you Bagging Up, but just in general, we saw it in the comments all the time, which is, Pete, how many times do we see Miami doesn't run enough plays?
Want to be more creative in the run game, yeah.
Why are the gaps so tight? The philosophy from this coaching staff is keep the gaps tight, which means you're not getting free rushers on the inside when they do all these games. You're very rarely taking losses. So I don't do that many stretch plays because you don't want to take losses, and you're going to just gain yards every single time. And if your offensive line is beastly and your running backs are beastly, which we were last year, you're going to not only not lose yards, but you're going to get nice chunks every single time. What ended up happening last year, we were top 5 in the nation in yards per carry. So you maybe weren't getting 70-yard runs consistently, but you were getting a lot of yards every single time. We never took losses. I'm pretty sure we were top 5, if not number 1, and not losing yards. Our third down conversion was the best in the country, which people say, oh, well, that's Cam Ward. Yeah, well, Cam Ward wasn't doing that at Washington State. He's the best player in the country. He's the best quarterback I've ever seen in Miami. But from a team standpoint, Washington State was not converting third downs at a particularly good rate. The reason he was converting so many third downs here is, number 1, he's Cam Ward. Number 2, he was Cam Ward with good down and distance. And the reason you had good down and distance is because you never took losses. You ran for a top 5 rate in terms of yards per carry. And if you need to convert anything, you're always going to convert it with Fletcher and Martinez. So that to me is what this running game is. And the key to that running game being successful is you got to have monsters up front who can win without having to be too creative and can just push guys. And you need big backs that can knock people back. And I think this year, with the offensive line returning most of its talent, and then the running back room, you still have Fletcher, who's a monster in the short yardage and the scrum, and then Lyle, who's a lot bigger than people think. I think we'll be okay there. You're going to miss Martinez. He's a great player. I think he's going to be a stud NFL guy. You're missing Rivers, who another guy that I would target. Those two are guys I think I want the Dolphins to pick, but we should be okay there still. And you got to keep recruiting at that level.
Anthony Manzano's asked this question like 5 times, so I wanted to get to it real quick. He's asking about Why is it that people underestimate how fast Mark Fletcher is? Is it because of his size or something else? Maybe his long stride. I mean, look, I don't think Fletcher's a 4.4 guy if he's running the 40, but it's kind of what you said. He takes those long strides. His feet aren't chopping like some fast guys. It doesn't look like he's fast, but he takes two strides and he gets 5 yards. So, yes, you'd love to have the ability for him to break off 60, 70-yard runs. Is that in his arsenal? I don't know that it is, but I think you'll see him bust off 10, 15, 20-yard runs pretty consistently this season.
Yeah, he has better acceleration than people think, and he doesn't waste a lot of movement. He's going upfield. So, listen, I love our running game. I think it's the best running game we've had in my life. Not my life. What am I saying? Since, the early 2000s, right? It's been a while. Feels like a lifetime ago. Yeah, I mean, since, I guess, probably since Willis McGahee. It was the best running game we had last year. Maybe numbers-wise, it wasn't because we passed so much, but certainly I think efficiency-wise and effectiveness, it was the best running game we've had in 23 years. So
I saw McGahee walking into practice the other day.
So here, go ahead.
No, I saw him walking into practice. I hadn't seen him really around as much as some other guys, so that was cool to see.
So yeah, it's good to see him. His son just went to Nebraska, I believe. So backing up, saying Fletcher does not have the speed of any of the OSU backs last year. So a couple of things. First of all, OSU, they won the championship. They had an incredible tailback room. I mean, they had 2 guys that are going to be picked in the first, second round. So that doesn't happen all the time. That was just one of the strengths of their team, and they had a lot of strengths. That's why they won the championship. They've been good for a long time and been able to recruit at that level a long time. But yeah, I mean, Ohio State had I would say their 2 backs were better than our top 2 backs. I don't have a problem saying that. I will say our running game averaged more yards per carry than theirs statistically. So that's considering that I do agree that they have better top 2 backs. Then I think that's pretty important to note. I would also say that Ohio State wanted Mark Fletcher. They recruited Mark Fletcher. He was committed to them.
He was committed there.
As was Jordan Lyle. So they thought those 2 guys were worthy of whatever they got going on, and they prioritized them. They weren't like the bottom of the class guys. So they liked those guys. They just brought in C.J. Donaldson from West Virginia, a Miami-Dade County back, as a transfer, who, in my opinion, is not as good as either of the guys we got. And I've seen them all in high school. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, Ohio State had 2 really good fast backs last year, but clearly they know the guys we have could play because they wanted them before we got them. So hopefully Miami's able to have 2 first-round picks in the backfield. We've had it before. Maybe Lyle and Fletcher become that. Who knows? But yes, there's levels that we can get to. I think until Miami has, Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee, Frank Gore, it's still below what you want, right? We've seen the absolute peak, which is higher than what Ohio State had. It's higher than what anybody ever's had. So let's see if we can get there.
Anthony says it's funny. Henderson and Judkins are the same size as Fletcher, yet they run with those choppy steps, like you said. I don't think they're the same size. I just looked it up. Trevion Henderson's 5'10", 207. I mean, Fletcher's 6'2", 220. And Quinshot Judkins 6 foot, 217. So, I mean, not a small back by any means, but Fletcher is like jumbo sized.
People don't understand how big Fletcher is. I think he's one of those guys you have to see in person to understand how big he is. Like Fletcher's like the slimmest he can be at 225 strong, I mean, he's got long arms. If you see Fletcher and you see like our defensive ends, like our boundary defensive ends in this Heatherman system, the more athletic defensive end is going to be on your boundary. Put Fletcher in that room with, I don't know, Malik Bryant,
and those guys. Yeah.
He's bigger than those guys.
Yeah.
So Fletcher's huge, which is why Ohio State wanted him because, big backs, powerful running games have won in college football since the beginning of time. There's never been exactly. Fletcher and Lyle would be Ohio State starting duo this season.
I love when we get positive Kyle on here, man.
Right,
really brightens my day.
He's 100% right.
Yeah.
So the power running, I believe this strongly, has won forever. Speed, athleticism, that plays maybe more in the NFL, right? Where the physical disparities are less and teams are more equal. But in college football, power running is what wins, period. I don't care what anybody says. There's how speed, all this running back. Listen, go to 2000 on. How many Alabama teams did not have powerful big backs? Some of those guys were first rounders. Some of them weren't. Some of them were 6 rounders, but they had big, powerful guys all over the place because that's how you win. That's what Georgia had. Georgia had Kenny McIntosh from down here, who is not better than the guys we have, but he's big. You win with power running. Everybody loved Reggie Bush. If USC had Reggie Bush and they didn't have Lindell White, they would have never won. So to me, power running is the name of the game in college football. It's different in the pros because teams are more physically comparable. So you can't just pound guys. You can't just like beat down teams and force them to quit. In college, you can. That's why every team either had, what's up, Brandon? Good to see you. That's why every team either had a big, powerful group of backs, or they had a 240-pound running back or a quarterback like a Tebow or a Cam Newton or a Vince Young. That's really, go down the line, look at every championship team, and tell me that's not what's on their team. Power running wins championships. Speed and all that's good for highlights. It's about the running back position. Speed and all that's good for highlights. And ideally, you have an Adrian Peterson or a Willis McGahee who has all of it. But push comes to shove, you better be able to run when the team expects you to run. And that's what Miami did last year. I think that's what Miami's going to do this year.
I haven't mentioned it at all, D. Hit that like and subscribe. We're at almost 1,000 live right now. Canes Cat C305 complaining we were doing it early, but these numbers are good, man. May have to go back to doing it early like this, man. Almost at 1,000 right now. So appreciate everyone who's on here. And he's asking if we've done basketball talk already.
Let's do it right now.
Let's do it. Yeah. So big news yesterday. Obviously got their point guard. It looks like as Jay Lucas and staff landed a commitment from Trey Donaldson coming over from Michigan. This is their starting point guard, a tournament team this year, battle tested in the Big Ten, former Auburn point guard as well, had about 20 minutes a game the previous season at Auburn. So has played in the SEC, has played in the Big Ten, was a big-time football recruit coming out as well. Miami had actually offered him as a safety. We can dive into this commit now. I really like this on a bunch of different levels, but to me, it's the physicality and the toughness that we're seeing already added here with Malik Renau. We'll talk about TCU center Ernest Ude in a second, who I would expect to be, committing to Miami here in the next day or so, and just setting the tone for what I would like to say last year. Yes, the talent didn't work together, but there were just games where there was not a sense of urgency on the floor. And a guy like Trey Donaldson, who has that football background, and just watching him play, the way he can get to the cup, good three-point shooter, well-rounded in terms of his ability to rebound the basketball, defend. Really, really great pickup here for Jay Lucas.
Yeah, this is somebody who I remember him from a football standpoint, right? Just being a very physical safety, cousin of Malik Rozier from Florida. Went to, I believe, Florida State High School. Didn't go to Florida State, thankfully. Yeah. But this was a guy who he was a football player. You watch him in basketball, and he's very tough in basketball. He's taking contact. He's not afraid to put his shoulder down. He's seeking contact on the basketball court on top of the ability to hit those deep threes. That's what stands out just kind of watching him, is the toughness. He had a tough season as far as he was benched for a while. He was in a tight competition. Then he ends up down the stretch making all their big shots and winning multiple games, including the Big Ten tournament on that full court layup. But he had, I believe, 4 game winners in like 4 games. So he's very tough. He's very resilient. And I think that's something that we've lacked at the point guard. We really haven't had a point guard, but we certainly not like a tough kind of leader like what you get.
I mean, Charlie Moore was a tough leader. He was just small.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, it's been a while, and Charlie Moore took us to the Elite 8. So yeah, I think Charlie Moore exactly fits the bill. Donaldson's bigger, but yes, we love a Charlie Moore. I think we could have used one last year. I think we could have used one the year before that. We've had ball handlers, but since Isaiah Wong has left, I think, and Isaiah Wong was not a true point guard himself, but that void of ball handling was never filled with someone that you trusted with the ball. And I think a true point guard is going to make a huge, huge difference on this team. And if you get a point guard and you're trying to build and Jay Lucas himself was a point guard, you want to build an identity, you want to have a culture. This is a guy who's going to bring toughness, he's going to bring competitiveness, resilience, a lot of things you want at the point guard position. He showed that last year for a team that made the tournament and a team that won a lot of games and a lot of big games with him making the shots down the stretch.
And I put the comment up there. Let me try to bring up the Trey Donaldson's post himself, but the comment there was from Canes Cats C305. He said Night Riders to the U, and that's the AAU program, of course, that has been coached by Andrew Moran. Columbus just won their quarterfinal game last night at the Chipotle Nationals. And look, people are asking about what sort of impact is he going to have. I think early on here, Malik Renau, another guy who played for that AAU program, Trey Donaldson, who in his post, I'm trying to pull up what he said here. He tagged Night Riders in it. So like, as if there's any sort of doubt. I'm not saying it was all because of him, but these ties are coming in early here. And he hasn't officially joined staff yet, so has to finish out the next few days here. But you see it; he's tagging the AAU program in the post. So obviously, some more guys potentially could come from there. We'll see. But this is a really nice start in terms of Donaldson and Renau.
Yeah, excited to see how this goes. And I like getting tough players, guys that do it the right way. Hit that like button, everybody. Appreciate you. You got to get the right people in the building that play the way you want your team to play. Because if you just acquire talent in the portal, you're going to have another season trying to figure it out. So I like that these guys are both competitive, tough, team-oriented. We'll have to figure out the style. Renew in particular is a guy that you got to figure out how to use him. We talked about on a show prior. He's more of an offensive 5, defensive 4. So how do you use him? We'll see. But he's a winner. He puts the ball in the bucket for a team that's competitive. And then Trey Donaldson, same thing, man. This guy's a winner. He's tough. He does things the right way. I'm excited to see how he impacts this program. Because I think, right now we're looking at the schedule. It's not going to be there's going to be a lot more names, but as far as like big ticket items, I think we've gotten 2 of them right away.
Yeah. And I think there's kind of a sense that this is going to be the foundation, along with, and I'll get to it again, Ernest Uday, center from TCU, who we've spoken about. But I put a little update out yesterday that kind of ties a lot of this stuff together into, what you're saying. Kyle is asking me a question on it here. Pete, do you still expect Jalen Lowe to end up at Miami? Is he a shooting guard? As of right now, I think that Donaldson thing kind of took it out. And I'm not saying this was the case necessarily with this one, but there wasn't a lot of buzz before Donaldson committed that he was coming to Miami, at least like from stuff that I had heard. Not saying that I'm like the end all be all when it comes to info, but they're working behind the scenes on other guys. I don't want to call things smoke screens, but I do think that some of the names we've heard, like with Jalen Lowe, there were ties there, and we all kind of, I think, jumped to the assumption that because he's John Lucas's godson that he was going to, automatically just pencil him in to this spot here. But they really like Donaldson as a player. I'm not going to say they preferred one to the other. I'm not in these conversations, but I can tell you that this was a guy that they had kind of had right at the top of their board in terms of running the show here. So that I wouldn't expect Lowe to be in there. I know there's some Kentucky buzz with him. And then just looking at my post that I made, I'll pull it up here. You guys check this out on Canes Insight on the basketball board. And literally in the post, I said, Donaldson's a pickup, solid, really solid. And then I said, I have a tough time seeing a scenario where him and Jalen Lowe are here. Not saying it's completely off the table, but that's just early on. That's what I've heard on that. Ernest Uday, penciling him in as Miami's starting center next season. Former 5-star, started his career at Kansas, was at TCU last year, averaged 7.5 boards a game. Not a guy who has a dominant low post offensive game right now, but runs the floor, athletic, brings you size, brings you real physicality. As a roller towards the basket, as an alley-oop guy, putbacks. I mean, he's going to give you all of that. I think you kind of alluded to it, D. How him and Malik Renaud play together, that'll be interesting to see, right? Because they're both more inside presences. Renaud can play from the wing, but not a shooter necessarily at this point. So that could be interesting, but size and athleticism. You need big bodies. That's been an emphasis early on. A lot of the stuff that I'm hearing from Jay Lucas sounds like a Mario Cristobal, where they're prioritizing size and athleticism. Because again, if you've watched this team in the last couple of years, they've lacked that across the board. You've had certain guys with it, but you need that. You need that at every position. So continuing to go down this list of updates, Divine Ugochukwu return not on the table unless something changes. We know Jaleel Bethia, that's been a possibility for a return for him. You dropped off here. Not sure if you can hear me, but you're off camera now. But don't expect Divine back. As of now, I see it being Jaleel Bethia or Matthew Abel. I think they're still in the mix for Abel, and Bethia has interest in returning, but have a hard time seeing it being both there. And then AJ Staten-McRae, one of the guys still on the roster from last season. One to watch. I think it's trending towards a return there for him, but nothing done there. So we will see what happens. We'll keep you updated on the latest here in terms of recruiting and the portal for Jay Lucas and Miami. Let me see. D-Money just texted me here. So yeah, guys, I'm going to kind of wrap things up here. D-Money had to hop off here, but wanted to, of course, let you guys know about Miami Hurricane Team Store right across from campus. And this is the hot item right now, of course, the Sean Taylor and Ed Reed jerseys. Remember, use promo code INSIGHT20, either in store, let them know about it. They got the button for the discount. And then, of course, off your first order, 20%. Insight 20 here online. You see some of the other new arrivals here, but this is the star of the show right now. So make sure to go check that out at MiamiHTS.com. And again, we're talking about not only the guys Jay Lucas is bringing in, but this recruiting class that Mario Cristobal and his staff putting together. None of this would be possible without Canes Connection. If you guys want to make a difference, join Canes Connection using promo code CIS. So Canes Connection /CIS. First month, as you see here, you get your first month free, and then you will unlock all these great rewards. But again, this is all about helping Miami continue to get as much talent here as possible, and you guys can really make a difference with Canes Connection. All right, everyone, going to wrap things up here. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you all for getting on here. Go Canes.